Hey y'all, and welcome to the Southland Piper. I'm your host Tim. Hope you're doing well today. In my previous video, I started work on a Peterson Kildare Shape 406. Refinished the stem, got it looking pretty good. If you remember, it had a hole in the bottom of the stem that we had to repair. So that is done now. So let's turn our attention to the stummel, and let's see what we got to do to get it into shape. So let's turn around to the workbench and get started. Does my hair look okay? Okay, we'll turn our attention to the bowl. Got quite a bit of carbon buildup on the surface of the rim. It's to the point that you can, some of it flake off. Yeah, you just pull it right off. Well, here's where I'd like to talk about. This tip came from Mutton Chop Piper. And I do it a lot, especially if I've just smoked a pipe or whatever, let it cool off a little bit. Q-tip and some saliva. And I'll do this pretty much after just about every smoke. But it does a really nice job. Now, on something this bad, I'm not expecting it to do a whole lot. But I'm just showing you that, Q-tip and saliva can actually help remove this carbon buildup. And that's one of my, along with chewing pipe stems, that I wish people would pay a little bit more attention to their rims of their pipes. Anyway, we'll get it all sorted out, but just wanted to mention that. I quickly knocked a lot of the carbon built up off, but wasn't particularly careful because I'm gonna top this bowl because we do have some damage around the bowl. People not being very careful when they ream the bowl, so we will be topping that one. But normally, a lot of times, I'll use some just full strength Murphy's oil soap. Let it soak on there about 15 minutes and wash it off and such. And Murphy's is great for getting a lot of that off, and use magic eraser at times as well. But like I said, I'm gonna top this one slightly because we're gonna have to try to do something about the over reaming. Now, another thing I like to do fairly early when we're looking at the bowl condition is go ahead and get it reamed out. Like I said, it's got an odd flatness to the bottom, but I was fortunate enough a couple years ago to find this reamer set at a estate sale. They just have OLD, and it looks like maybe an I at the end. Register 1954, Denmark. Now this one's marked with a 13. I've got a 15, 17, 19. These last two aren't marked. They've got the I don't know if that's old or OLDI, but on the back side, they don't. These last two aren't marked, but this one's 20 millimeters and this one's 22. But great set. If you ever spot one and you get it for a decent price, I'd really recommend them. They're really nice. Also got a Decatur set as well. But let's see. And we'll scroll down a little bit. Of course, all y'all know that reaming pipes is dirty work. This one doesn't have particularly thick cake inside. Like I said, somebody's been reaming on it quite a bit. But I do want to try to gauge the condition of the pipe, especially if it has other problems. Want to find those out, and a lot of times cake will hide those. So I'll get this one reamed out and we'll continue on. All right, I believe that's about all the reaming I'm going to do. You can see down in there. Said somebody got a little aggressive down in the bottom of the bowl, probably with a pocket knife or some sharp implement. So this is going to need a slight repair. The sides aren't terribly bad. There's a little gouge. I don't know how well y'all can see that little gouge down there. But I'll put some pipe mud to help. And of course, anytime I sell a pipe like this, I do let people know that the bowl has been repaired. But if any of you are familiar with Aristocob and their Miracle Mud, that's what I use. It's great stuff. It does a wonderful job. All right, let's work on this bowl a little bit. We're going to start by topping it. It's got a lot of unevenness here from previous reaming. I'm not going to go too far, but just a little bit. 400 grit. You could either do circular motions, or some people like to pull a straight motion. Now guys, I'm no expert. I just kind of watched some YouTube videos and kind of experimented around with what I'm doing. This is how I do it. Is this the best way to restore a pipe? Not necessarily, but it's the way I restore pipes. I take a paper towel, put a little alcohol on it, see how things are looking. Yeah, so you can see a lot of darkening just around the edge mainly, but gives you an idea of what we're dealing with. You dry this off. Yeah, you can see how darker it is over here. Sometimes the wood will just go darker with the heat process and such that it goes through. May not be able to get down to where I really like. But I believe I'm going to stop where we're at this moment as far as topping it. And let's do this. Got a golf ball. And whatever this is. And I like to take this one might be the better fit. Try to bevel that inside edge of the bowl a little bit, especially where you've got that over reaming and they've damaged the rim, inside of the rim. All right, got a fresh piece of sandpaper. Yeah, still got a little bit here. We'll continue to work on that and see if we can get that rim in a little bit better shape. Well, I stepped up to my golf ball. I I like that a little bit better as far as the way it's got the bowl rim looking. See that with a little alcohol. Yeah, I think I'm gonna be fairly happy with that. You know, I want to stay as true as I can to the pipe, and but sometimes you do have to make a few changes. But an estate pipe is an estate pipe, and there are, when you get into restoring them, a lot of times you've got to make some compromises. But I like that pretty well. All right, before we get much further on this stummel, I really do need to address the interior of the bowl. It doesn't show up very well on video, but the bottom of the bowl is very flat. What I'll do is I'll take a dental pick and probe around on the interior, make sure I'm not finding any charred out, burned spots. Make sure I'm good solid briar everywhere, and I did that earlier, and it seems to be just fine. So what I'm going to use, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Aristocob Miracle Mud. I like it really well. It's very durable, gets dries nicely without a lot of cracking, or I've never really seen it crack. It's a great product. Now this color is a little too light. I want it to be a little closer to an ash look when I'm finished, but I don't want to add too much to it to mess up the integrity of that. So that's some of the Aristocob Miracle Mud, and I've mixed some activated charcoal in with it, and that's what I use. Comes out to a nice gray once it's dried, and then I usually take straight activated charcoal and a little water and a brush and coat my bowls as well. But that's what we're going to use. So let me mix some up with some water and get it spread in there, and we'll take a look to see how it came out. All right. Got the bowl looking much better. I may still tweak it a little bit. Got a little ridge down there, may work on, but the flat bottom is now gone. Got a nice rounded bowl. So that turned out fairly well. All right, we're back on this Peterson stummel, 400 grit. I've already taken care of the rim, but this is just going to be start doing some sanding work. And it's going to take a while, but we'll just see how it all comes out. Now, I am concerned about, if I get to focus, didn't want to focus very well. I am concerned about the nomenclature. You see, it's just extremely light. I'm going to go easy with the sandpaper, but boy, it's not looking good for that stuff. So anyway, we'll continue on, and we'll see what we end up with. Well, I've sanded the bowl down with 400 and 600. I'd like to take it on down to at least to 800, but I've got to give these stampings a break. There's just not much left. Yeah. So let's squirt a little alcohol on a paper towel and see what this pipe is looking like. There's some nice briar there. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to take her much further. If I had good, stronger stampings, I know I can sand really light around those, but even with just some high grit, you're still going to take down some of that wood around those. So I don't want this pipe to totally lose its stamping. So we're gonna stop right there, but just some really pretty bird's eye there. All right, we'll let this dry up real good, and then we'll look at putting some dye on it and getting it buffed out. We'll see how that turns out. All right, Beveling's light tan leather dye. That's what we're going to use. Just got a twisted up pipe cleaner for applicator. I think a light stain will look really nice on this pipe. Before we spill it. And I may totally redo this pipe. We'll see. Then put a little alcohol on a paper towel, and we'll just give it a good rub. Try to even out that application as well as we can, and lighten it just a slight bit. Sorry, got out of frame. Get back in a little bit. So we'll let that dry and see what she looks like. Okay, this is my buffing station. Just a small little, it's actually made for jewelry. It's variable speed off of Amazon. I run 5-inch wheels on it. And then I have my dust collection system. Let me see if I can move this a little bit. The 2 gates and the shop vac underneath. Using carnauba wax. And let's see how this pipe looks. Well, it's looking okay so far. Uh, Sometimes I like to put a little heat on the briar to help the wax get down into the pipe. It's got to be warm to polish up. So I'm being easy on the shank, but I'm gonna have to get a little bit more aggressive. But I'm gonna put a little bit another round on it. I may run it through just the plain buffer wheel here in a second. Well, we've got it off the buffer now. Some people would say, just avoid sanding over the nomenclature, which I try to avoid as much as possible when it's that light. But if you don't do some sanding, it makes it more difficult to get a good look on the whole stummel. You could have a little splotchiness where you didn't get all the old finish off and such, but I'm pretty happy with this, guys. All right, we have the finished pipe. You can still see a little bit of that nomenclature, but I think the pipe turned out fairly well. I'm going to put some pictures here at the end to show a little before and after. But happy with it. The top of the bowl, which originally was more flat, As I mentioned earlier, you got to make compromises sometimes. So this rolls on the edges a little bit where it was more squared off originally. But in order to get a more squared off top rim, I would have had to top it down a lot more. And I like to keep as much of the bowl height as I possibly can. But like I said, I'll add some still shots here at the end. All right, some pictures of the pipe in its original condition when I received it. There's that hole that we had to repair. Of course, the rim. And here's after we finished it up. I think the stem still needs a little polishing, but I'm happy with it overall. Pipe turned out fairly nice. The rim looks much better, and then the repair on the stem. Well, thank you for sharing your time with me today, and hope to talk to you soon. Bye.